Thank you all for coming. I'd like to welcome you to the 2018 Pune Insurance Claims Forum. My name is Jill Rasnov. Some of you know me as Jill Wedgwood. I'm an attorney. I live here in Pune. I've lived here for a little more than a decade and about 2 decades in the state. And I'm really grateful to see you all. Sorry that I have to see you all under these circumstances, but we're here today to provide you with helpful, accurate, informative information, and I hope you receive it in that vein. We're not here, it's not a sales event. I want to make that clear. There's no insurance carriers here today. There are some attorneys here, but we're not here to give you legal advice. We're advocates, and we're here simply to give you information that will help you. I'd like to first say some mahalos to the folks who helped put this together. I'd first like to thank Robert Jocelyn of Hawaii Public Adjusters, who's behind me, and his amazing team. Robert contacted me 2 weeks ago. I attended a webinar training for attorneys on this insurance issue. And I asked a lot of questions because a lot of you folks were coming to me and asking me questions that I didn't have answers to. And Robert contacted me after that and said, how can we help? Can we come out there? And I said, sure. And within less than 2 weeks, his team organized this and came out here. They're from Maui, and they came all the way here to the Big Island to provide us this information. So I'm so incredibly grateful to them. And I'm going to try to be brief because we have a long program, but I do just want to tell you briefly what HPA, Hawaii Public Adjusters, is. They are the only state licensed firm physically located on any of the islands in the state. They are licensed and bonded professionals who are retained by policyholders, that's you, to assist in documenting, filing, and monitoring the progress of insurance claims. A public adjuster works for the person or group of people or business that has sustained a loss. Public adjusters do not work for insurance companies. Let me say that again. Public adjusters do not work for insurance companies. They are governed by the state of Hawaii Insurance Division. They work solely for you, the policyholders. They work to obtain the most equitable and prompt settlement possible. Next, I want to thank County Councilwoman Eileen O'Hara. I'm not sure where she's right behind me. Thank you so much. And her aide, Kendra Tidwell, is over there. And they were so helpful. When we asked for help, they jumped right up and said, we'll help. They provided this most awesome, accommodating venue for free. And they also provided a lot of support and publicity. And they are also live streaming from the office of Eileen O'Hara. They are live streaming this event. So if you need to leave, on Facebook, on the office of Eileen O'Hara Facebook page. So if you need to leave or you have friends that can't watch or can't be here, you can text them and you can let them know. I next want to thank our state rep, Joy Sam Buenaventura. She couldn't be here today. She had to be on Oahu, but she too heeded the call and came to our support. She provided all the refreshments that are in the back. If you're thirsty, you need some juice or water or something to eat, feel free to get up. And right in the back there's some refreshments for you. And she also provided some publicity. Charlene Iboshi was our former county prosecutor. She's an attorney, and she's does a lot of work for the community, and she's just been incredibly supportive. So for this event, but also for this particular event. Bill Heflin, who's not here yet, he's on his way. He's a local attorney. He does personal injury and plaintiffs work in the insurance arena. So I want to thank him for his time and expertise in coming out here to give us some information. We also have Sandy Watts is here from United Policyholders. She's right here. She comes all the way from California. Sandy has 30 plus years of experience and expertise in the insurance field, and I want to tell you what United Policyholders, the company she's with, is briefly. They are a non-profit 501c3 organization whose mission is to be trustworthy and useful information resource and an effective voice for consumers of all types of insurance in all 50 states. They were formed to help level the playing field between insurers, the companies, and the insureds. That's you. Donations, foundation grants, and volunteer labor support the organization's work. No insurance companies fund or underwrite their programs, none. United Policyholders has helped change laws in favor of consumers, exposed and corrected wrongdoing, and helped to bring about successful claim settlements after fires, hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, business interruption losses, and disabling injuries and illnesses. And we are now going to hopefully include volcanic eruption and lava inundation in this list. And finally, I would like to thank Mr. Tom Zizi, right here. He's an attorney. He comes all the way from Waianae, Oahu, to help us. He has extensive experience in prosecuting claims for plaintiffs against insurance companies in the bad faith arena. So he's got a lot of great information to share with us. A couple housekeeping matters. I would ask you all to silence or turn off your cell phone if you haven't already done that. The luas, the bathrooms, are in the back there, across from the refreshments. If you get hot, you can go outside and you'll still be able to hear outside. We apologize, there's not enough seats. We just couldn't know how many people were going to show up. But we're glad you're all here, and we hope you can stay till the end. We're going to have a break midway through. We ask that you hold your questions, please, until the break. We're also going to have a question and answer session at the end. If you are uncomfortable speaking on the microphone, we've provided some note cards and pens. You're welcome to write your questions down and provide it to one of us, and we'll be happy to answer it that way, okay? And so, without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Ms. Sandy Watts. And I would just like to tell you a little bit about her, yeah? No? Okay, she doesn't want me to tell you anything about her, so she's ready to go. It's all you.
Thank you. Actually, I'll do this one. That one's making a noise. Thank you. I'm going to move this back a little bit. Hi, everyone. I'm Sandy Watts. I'm with United Policyholders. And as Jill said, we're a nonprofit group. Go ahead and put the... I'm from San Francisco, so I'm happy to be here on your island. I'm sorry, this is the reason I'm here. But United Policyholders, our mission is to help insurance customers negotiate claims, basically. We're a nonprofit 501c3. We work in all 50 states. We've been to Hawaii before for hurricanes. This is our first lava flow. We are, as she said before, funded by donations and grants, and our volunteers make up the bulk of our workforce. So, go to the next one. Okay, so this is a really, as you guys already probably know, a really unique event. A lot of the work that we do, especially recently, has focused around the California wildfires. Pretty easy, it's not easy, but it's coverage-wise, insurance coverage-wise, it's an easier situation than what's going on here. So one of the things that we really want to focus on is that there's a wide variety of insurance policies among all you. You probably are already aware of that. And a lot of the policies are different. So you're going to have, I've heard there's a lot of people insured with Lloyd's, with the Hawaii insurance, I always forget the acronym, and then some of the major carriers as well. So each of those companies has a little bit different policy language. So it's really important as you go through your claims to really focus on your policy and not what you've heard from somebody else. Because if you heard, well, somebody else got this, and even if it's the same company, it might not be the same coverage that you have. In a lot of cases, getting insurance coverage for these claims is going to be challenging, and so it's going to require a really systematic approach. So a lot of, it's a known risk. So these insurers have gone and they've kind of carved out damage. They've said, okay, lava is something that's going on here. And so there's a lot of policies that specifically exclude damage caused by lava. And now there's some that still have, that do have coverage. They have specific coverage. And there's sometimes when, in case-by-case basis, where an argument can be made for your specific coverage, if, say, you were expressly told that you had lava coverage and then ended up not having it. So that's a case-by-case basis. And then Robert's going to go into the policy information. I was an adjuster for State Farm for 25 years. So I've seen a lot of these different things. I'm not personally really familiar with all of the Hawaii policies, so he's going to get into that. But there are some situations, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this already, where coverage might be triggered under your homeowner's policy, even if you don't have the law of coverage. And specifically, that's fire, and then damage from power outages, and then mandatory evacuation orders. And the next one. Okay, so this is sort of the main information on how to proceed with your claim. It's super overwhelming. I imagine a lot of you feel really overwhelmed right now, and maybe you've never had an insurance claim before, so we want to sort of just focus. It's a long process. It's a marathon and not a sprint, unfortunately. And what you want to really do is you want to focus on process and kind of remember that these contracts, they're contracts, so they're business things. And even though there's a really, really emotional side to this situation, it makes your insurance claim easier to try to separate those two things and try to kind of try as much as you can to keep the insurance claim in a super business-like thing. So focus on the claims process. First off, keep your family safe. Stay out of the areas. Obviously, you all know that. And find a temporary housing for your family. Take out what you can. If you're allowed back in your house, if they let you in for a while, take out what you can. You guys know all that. But one of the things you need to do is, regardless of whether you have coverage or not, keep track of everything. We recommend getting one of those accordion binders with the slots in it, and keep every single receipt. Have a slot for, food expenses. Have a slot for housing expenses. Have a slot for each different category. Keep it in there, because when you're starting out, you might not know whether your claim is going to be covered or not. And there's also things that you can do in the end, tax-wise and stuff as well. Take photos of everything. Also, the first time you get back on the property, take pictures. Any pictures you have, it's also a good time while you're waiting to go back through your pictures digital. This is the great thing about digital photos, is the more photos that you have of your house before this happened, the easier things will be if you do have insurance coverage. So keep photos. Okay, so it seems obvious, but sometimes, people get caught up. You contact your agent as soon as possible. Submit your claim promptly and, get them going on it. One of the most important things you can do while you're waiting for everything to get started is specifically request from your agent or your insurance company a certified copy of your policy. Okay, and I'm going to have a slide up here about that. But that is the declarations page it's called, and that's the thing that really spells out what kind of coverage is. This is an example of what they look like. So if you see here, I got a little pointer here. These are not always easy to read. See right there? So this is your dwelling. So this is going to tell you just the basic coverage buckets that you have. This doesn't go into any of the exclusions. It doesn't go into any of the things, but it tells you, so this house, this is the dwelling. It's insured for $600,000. These are the other structures. So that's like carports, sheds, barns, things like that, $60,000. This is the personal property coverage there. Loss of use. So loss of use are your additional living expenses for the time that you are rebuilding your property. So that's that. And these are liability coverage. These are different. So you want to get this, and you want to get your specific policy and the policy booklet that comes along. You want to get that as well, because that's going to have the specifics of what your policy says and how they interpret what's covered and what's not covered. This is part of a declaration sheet here, And this is an example of how they show the endorsements. So endorsements are things, sometimes people call them riders. They're like little things. So it's very common to have an insurance policy that excludes something and then adds a little bit back on. They want to sort of limit the coverage. So this is where you look. And then this is where they also, like this one has a hurricane exclusion specifically. But when you get your certified copy, you should get these 2 pages. You should get the booklet. They come in different ways. But then you should also get see these little numbered things? These are usually separate little pieces of paper that that have the actual language for each of these. So a lot of the policies I know do have like a lava, right? Or I don't know, Robert will probably go into that a little bit more. So what you want to do is, obviously review your coverages really carefully. And it's a good idea to get people to help, and I'll get into that a little bit later, because the cause of the damage is going to be key. And that might sound really weird, okay, because obviously it's all volcano damage. But there is a difference between a fissure opening up and your house falling in the hole, the lava kind of coming down, catching your house on fire. There's just all sorts of different, some houses that don't burn that are filled with ash and soot. So it's a really specific, now some cases you're not going to be able to figure out what happened unless there's some sort of maybe news footage or something. It's going to be difficult to figure out what happened, but if it's possible, you really need to pin that down and to have that as your specific cause of loss. Because sometimes you just don't want somebody to assume what happened to your house. So it's in the lava flow area, so it got flowed over by lava. Well, that's not necessarily the case, okay? So again, don't rely on what others sort of tell you, I did this and this was covered, because they could be working with a completely different set of policy language. Okay, so one of the things that we really want to stress when you're working with your insurance company, do everything you possibly can in writing. I mean, it's fine to pick up the phone and talk to your adjuster, but we really recommend following up in writing. What you really want to do is have a paper trail, okay? And so you want to be able to, if things go down the road and you have a difficulty, you want to be able to say, okay, I submitted the claim this day, you told me the answer this day. You just want to be able to have it in a very clean way. And ask them to put all of theirs in writing. One of the things that I want to talk about is, we've heard a lot of circumstances where a customer has a loss, they call up their agent or their broker, and they say, oh, well, I had a loss. And the agent or broker says, oh, well, your policy doesn't cover that. And so then they have a little talk about it, and they say, yeah, you've got this lava exclusion, blah, blah, blah. Okay, bye. Click. That's the end of that. Don't let that happen, okay? No matter what they tell you, make sure they submit a claim to the carrier. And it sounds like that also sounds like a super obvious thing that would happen, but it is not. It is not a super obvious thing. So you want to make sure that they submit it to the carrier and that you move from your agent or broker as your point of contact to an insurance adjuster. Okay, so somebody who adjusts the claims all the time. And a lot of cases happen in disasters like this where companies don't have enough staff adjusters to handle all of the losses. Now, I'm not sure what you're seeing in terms of that right now, because you guys have a lot of different insurers. But a lot of times what they do is they hire independent adjusters who are a little bit different than, like Robert. Independent adjusters are adjusters that are hired by the insurance company to adjust the claim. And so they'll come out and they'll, sort of figure out what you're go from there. So you want to make sure that you keep a paper trail of what's happening, because those people turn over quite a bit, okay? So they'll come out maybe for 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and they'll handle a bunch of claims, and then they'll be off to Texas or wherever they come from. So you don't want to reinvent the wheel with the next person that comes along, and it gets really frustrating. So it's kind of good if you expect it up front. When you're writing to them, always confirm to them that you're willing to do what they need for you, but that you also need them to do for you. So tell them that you're cooperating. Be really specific on what you need, what it is you need. And also, we have, by the way, I see people writing things down. We did this roadmap to recovery handout. So a lot of this stuff is in here, and then I'll go through later. We have some resources online as well, so you don't have to do too much of that. If they make you a promise and say, okay, I'm going to be back to you, I'm going to tell you in 2 weeks what's covered, make sure you hold them to that, okay? So if they promise you, if somebody says to you on the phone, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks, shoot them an email and say, okay, thanks for talking to me. I look forward to hearing from you in 2 weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, if you hadn't heard from them, write them back and say, okay, I was expecting to hear from you. I'm ready for my answer now. They really can't use the excuse. They need to keep, working on it. So sometimes you get stall things. So you need to kind of keep moving them along. Don't let them just say, oh, I'm still working on them. Ask them. If they say, oh, I'm still working on your claim, ask them, what exactly are you doing? What is it that you're doing that's taking this amount of time? Remind them of your leverage. Your leverage is, that your houses have been eaten by a volcano. So you guys are all, in a really tough situation, and they need to be reminded sometimes of that. And so, this is a big issue. This is a big event, and you need to kind of keep on to them. And then this is sort of just a reiteration of give them a time frame. The next one. Okay, so they're going to go into this a little more. Robert's going to go into the actual policy contracts. But we hear a lot, and it's really tough. People say, well, I bought insurance. I expect to have some coverage for some of these things. It's a contract. So what's written down in the contract is generally what you bought. There are laws on how they are interpreted, and they're different in every state. But it's a business negotiation, and you need to... And we also need to remember that you have paid for coverage, and you've paid for claim service. Even if you don't have coverage for that thing, you've paid for some claim service. So one of the things that I don't know is in my slides, but if they do tell you that your claim is denied, so say they say, okay, you have a lava exclusion, make sure that they're really, really specific. When they first you're the denial in writing, and they need to be really specific. They can't just write to you and say, yeah, your claim's not covered and here's this. They need to say, your claim was caused specifically by X. Here is the exclusion that we're relying on. And it should be very obvious how those two fit together so that you can do it. And if you don't understand the denial, like if you get it and you're like, make him do it again. And go back and make him do it again and say, I need to know specifically what's going. If you're not liking the way your adjuster's dealing with you, or if you feel like your claim's not going well, one more. You can go up the chain. You can go up the chain of command. So a lot of times the adjuster reports back other people, obviously, in the company who make decisions on these. So start with the adjuster. If you have a problem, and don't feel badly to keep going to your adjuster. Call your adjuster every day if you need to. That is what they're for. A lot of people will come to us. We see a lot of people, they'll come to us and they'll say, well, I'm not getting what I need for my adjuster. And I'll say, well, when's the last time you talked to him? And said, well, I talked to him a couple weeks ago, but I didn't really. It's like, keep calling them up. Make them explain it to you. Ask them if they'll come and meet you in person. An insurance company really should have somebody for an event like this, for these types of claims. They should have somebody to come out, meet with you in person, talk to you, and make things clear, at least so you understand where it's going. And a little trick, so sometimes people have a hard time getting their adjusters, they get into the voicemail. I'll just tell you a little trick. Most of the companies have it's like a call circle. So when you call, you can leave a voicemail message, call back, and hit 0, because most of them have a hunt thing where it goes to a team, and those teams will pick up. And a lot of times, if you get somebody's coworker, it'll put some pressure on that person to get back, because the coworkers have their own job, so they don't want to be answering their slacker neighbors' claim questions. So just there's little tricks, and then complain. Go up the ladder, talk to their supervisor, talk to and just ask for help. Okay, one more. Okay, so we kind of touched on a little bit. Robert's going to go into it in a lot more detail, but some of these claims are going to be require some finesse. They're going to need help from an expert, and to sort of try to get some coverage on these tough policies. So look for experts. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. Okay. Yeah. So there's different experts. You want different experts for different things. There's coverage. I guess we didn't put it up here, but there's people who specialize in coverage questions. Okay, people who specialize in insurance coverage law, attorneys, and people like that who can tell you. Well, I've dealt with a case like this before, and here's they have experience in it. If your coverage is triggered. But it's a evaluation. So once you get coverage, then you have to negotiate the amount of your claim, which is a whole new thing. For houses that don't exist, it's a big challenge. So, in a normal house fire, people don't really realize it, but there's a lot still there that adjusters can look at and piece together. Even in a burned house, you can kind of dig through and see what kind of flooring somebody had, what kind of wall coverings and things like this. That can't happen if the house is gone. So that's where your photos come in handy. That's where things like that. And there are experts out there who can help you prove the extent and cause of your damage and the value. And then sometimes, I'm sorry, I want to be as positive as possible, but sometimes they send out experts and they're biased experts. Sometimes the insurance company will send somebody out and they won't necessarily have your best interest in mind. So sometimes you have to get your own expert to talk to them and say, hey, look. And then pre-existing damage, I don't know if you guys are going to have that issue here. Okay. Okay, and then, so if you've sort of tried to go through this, and you're still in a dispute, we already talked about going up the chain of command. You can file a formal complaint with the Hawaii Department of Insurance. I'll have another slide on that. And then there's some alternative things you can do that they'll talk about later. This is way farther down the line. You guys are just at the beginning, so I'm not going to really get into this, but just know that there are methods for resolving insurance disputes, and then with the last one being a lawsuit. So here's the information on California Department of Insurance consumer information. So you can go here. Sorry. California for too long. There's not a lot. I looked at their website the other day. They don't have a ton up there right now, and I think it's for the same reason. It's because they can't just make a blanket statement and say, here's how it's going to be, because each of your cases is really individual. This is just a copy of the form, so you can just go online and get it if you need it. Departments of insurance are very helpful. They can step in and resolve disputes. This last bit is we have a really huge resource library. So United policyholders, we just put it out there for everybody. This is an Ask an Expert forum, and you can go in there. Now, you're going to have to give us a little bit of leeway because we don't do a ton of lava claims so far. But we have attorneys who are on our panel who answer the things. And so you can go in there, ask a question, and we're going to do our best to try to get back to you and answer your question. And it's all private. So one more. Lisa? Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, and we also have a library. So we have a Hawaii Claim Help library, and we're adding lava stuff in here. But in addition to that, we have things on that talk to you about how to get your claim, your dwelling claim submitted, how to do a contents claim. Did you guys pick up the little yellow book? So the little yellow book, that's free, that's our publication. There is a sample household inventory in there. So one of the things I'm going to say is that Making a household inventory is super tedious. It is not anybody's fun job. Just remember that there's a lot of things that you think are not necessarily valuable or anything, and those are important. You know, you've got a lot of money in your spice drawer. And it's true, you know. People don't even think about it. You know, they don't think about it. So, and you know, cosmetics and things like that. So, so there's some examples in that book. There's also examples online. We have I think you can download an inventory that has a sample so that you can go through and say, hey, wait, I had that, I had that, I had that. And just kind of helps you with that. They're also going to ask you, just so that you know, on these, the ones that are covered, they're going to ask you for an approximate age and condition. So we got a lot of questions on that. Through our website and at our workshops. It's how they value it. It's a necessary thing, and we just need to do that. We have guides for overcoming obstacles. We have guides for professional help. We do have an expert resource list. I'm not sure how many people. I think we only have a few for Hawaii, but they're in there. 2? Yeah, we're working on it. Okay, and then the next one. Yeah, here we go. This is just uphelp.org. That's where you start. Go to Loss Recovery. My name, I can be reached at sandy@uphelp.org. So if anybody has any specific questions, you can just write to me and I'll try to find out the answer for you as best I can. And then I'm going to turn it over to Robert, and then we're going to do questions at the end of the thing. So thank you.
All right, everybody, my name's Robert Jocelyn. Again, sir in the back with a hat. Can you hear me? That's a nod. There you go. Thank you. I'm going to make sure that guy's hearing me. A little announcement. We didn't know this. Keona Poco Elementary School gate. The school over here is going to lock that gate at 4:30. So you're going to camp here, or you're going to go move your car, right? Because you got about a half hour before they do that. All right. I'm going to triple this, you know that, right? You're going to laugh. All right, Hawaii Public Adjusters. You know, let me give you a little history of myself. I hail from Houston, Texas. I've been here since 1985 in Maui. April 22nd, 1984, I lost everything in a house fire. The insurance company said, you're not covered. You signed the application incorrectly for when I bought the insurance. I have a special place in my heart for those guys. They let me go to Maui with $212 in my pocket. I left my 2 kids with my parents, single father. That was able to bring them back later, and I got into construction and this. So, I've been getting even ever since. So, and I got to tell you that with these insurance companies, I got a lot of friends that are in this insurance industry. A lot of them. So I'm sorry, ma'am. I keep stepping in front of you. I'll just keep wandering around here. We have good adjusters in Hawaii. We have terrible adjusters in Hawaii. You okay? All right. We have terrible and good adjusters in Hawaii. We have terrible adjusters that come from the really, really big island of America and do a horrible job here. I get people from Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Texas, Arizona that will tell me how much drywall costs in your town. Well, I have a drywall license. I have 19 contractor license category trades here in Hawaii. So I want any one of them to come in front of me and tell me how much it costs to hang drywall. All right, we are the oldest and largest public adjusting firm here in the state. Public adjusters, we all go by PAs. This is a business of acronyms, so just get used to it. Volunteers for United Policyholders, and I am a Hawaii Emergency Management Agency's VOAD division. That is when something happens, the floods, things like that. They'll get the Methodist or Catholic revitalization efforts, all those. I am a member of them. I assist the volunteers. Let's see, cases, we do cases, everybody goes, okay, how much do you cost, right? Well, let me go through this. Pro bono, and I just handled one maybe a year ago, one a year, and it had to do with Home Depot had asked me to talk to this person that they had sold a desk to. Home Depot sends out 2 delivery guys to do it the next day, except for one delivery guy doesn't show up. That guy drags that desk right across that whole bamboo wood floor. The lady said, I want bamboo all around my house. Home Depot said, no way. So then I get this call. He said, will you settle this with us, help us? That's my pro bono work. It's a one-item issue, right? The floor. Well, she had different flooring in the upstairs. She had carpet up her stairs. So I said, she gets all of this flooring replaced, not repaired, and she doesn't get all of her other flooring replaced. Both sides agreed. That's where it ended. That's what we do pro bono-wise. We don't get paid for that. We do hourly fees. Several of the attorneys I saw in here hire me by hourly. I've been Dalberted down. I can be an expert in court. Coverage issues, how you handle a claim, what's proper, what's fair, what's not fair. That's where I live. What's fair, what's not fair, who's owed what. And the majority of our contracts are by contingency fee. I don't get paid unless you get paid. There's a lot of that in this room. Am I still too low? You need me louder? Oh, it's raining. I'm sorry, it's raining. Apparently Goldilocks is right in here, so I can... All right, so I am Robert Jocelyn, the only CPPA out in Hawaii in the Central Pacific. I am a nationally certified number 93 as a certified professional public adjuster. I sit on the national boards. I do a lot of legislative work for you. I can't seem to get past somebody that's in that legislature right now, but I bet you after this I will. Lisa Jocelyn. In the Goldilocks area is Lisa Jocelyn right there. My wife, she's operating the computer. Jimmy Lloyd, public adjuster. Jimmy, where you at, buddy? There he is at the door. PA. Vicky Habib. Vic, right here. She's our contents and documenters for personal property, which is known as contents. Personal property is contents. And Coral B. Ann, I'm left-handed. She's my right hand. Where's Coral? She's at the door. Coral is one of the first people you talk to when you call into the company. She starts making sure the paperwork's happening. The very first thing is an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, because we want to know that you and I are talking, and nobody else is in this conversation but you and I. No adjuster. I'm sorry, there's one other. If you have an attorney, we want to know about it because we'll work with them too. If not, let's just keep this a private conversation till we're done, right? Right? Loose lips sink ships. All right. What's my job? To prove the extent of damage, the cause of damage, the value of the damage, and I need to display, this is a nice way to put this, the inappropriateness of adjusters. I call out items that the adjuster didn't even address. I can't tell you how many times they've painted a burnt down wall and they don't put the drywall in, and they're arguing with you that that's enough money. And that it's this much drywall costs this much at Home Depot. It's not their job to tell you how much drywall is at Home Depot. It's their job to give you the right amount of money to fix your house the way it was just prior to the loss. And you get a contractor to do it. You get somebody to move your contents in and out, store it, and put you in a place. These are all your HO3 type policies. I'll go through these policies when we drill them down. But that's their job. It's not your job to go pick up the contents, box it up, go put it in storage. That's not your job. But if you did it, I'm going to make them pay you. Why? Because that's the value of the loss, not the cost. All right. I also, we have to discredit certain bias carrier experts. There's a few experts that handle the policyholder side. I am one of them. They go get their guy. There's the argument. I have people that have never been an adjuster, that haven't have a contractor's license, and will argue with me whether the cabinet should be replaced. I mean, that's just nuts. You know, like, here it is, it's bad. Yeah, it's got mold, we got a mold limit. No, you don't, you got water damage with mold on it. All those cabinets get replaced. I never have placed a single mold claim in the history of our company because it's water damage. You don't hit a sublimit of $10,000 if it's water damage. To disprove the pre-existing conditions, that's one of them. Wear and tear, you know, how old was that roof? My God, that roof was 20 years old. That shows on the permit, so we're only going to give you this much for that old roof. I said, no. Every time they make that annual payment on that policy, It starts all over again. The only depreciation, the only thing they're allowed to do is during your term, your period, right, of that year. They'll go back through 20 years and start again. Every year, they have a new agreement with you. They sell you another policy, and it all starts all over again. Don't let them depreciate you down. I'll show you how. You don't. And then we do this, supporting documentation of the loss. Somebody says, I've got a lot of pictures. I go, wow, that looks like 17. We do hundreds of pictures, close-ups, name tags. Well, we prove it. We prove it. We don't have these issues because they look at what we do and they go, well, let's see, do we pay them or do we take these people to court? Well, we'll take you to court. If I got 300 people being treated the same way, do you think the legislature and the insurance commissioner and those people are going to listen? You betcha. 1 and 2 of you at a time, you're divided. What happens when you're divided? You'll follow. All right, so out here is the HPIA, right? The HPIA. That is what was first sold in, I know it's HPIA, but I have to say it that way. So, only a few of you got that in the crowd, right? All right, so I don't want to just sit here and read the screens to you, but essentially they were created because of the flow that happened in 91. So that flow in 91, they said, well, all the carriers said, well, we're not going to sell over there. What is insurance? What is insurance? Spreading that risk, and you do it across to keep you indemnified. Well, how do you do that? Well, you get a lot of people buying so that these few people, when they do have a fire, there's plenty of money in the till. And believe me, I know several insurance companies are making more than 60% a year in this state. 60% a year. What kind of returns are you getting on your money? Oh, come on. And they're going to get tight on us now? I'm not going to have it. So then Hurricane Iniki hits, and they say, well, we just got all these carriers to join in. Now we just beat them up with a hurricane. So then they said, we went out of this Hawaii market. We're not going to make any money here. Actually, we're not going to make a lot of money here, right? So they took the HPIAs and they made them lava and non-lava, right? Because Kauai was paying a higher rate when they got these carriers together and said, well, we're not going to make those people pay lava. So HPIA became a statewide. And what makes up HPIA? Here we go. HPIA is the FAIR Act, Fair Access to Insurance Requirements. FAIRs are all over our nation. Hurricane, hailstorm areas, a lot of the coastal states, some of them are earthquake-prone areas. The board is made up of an 8-4 membership blame. You've got 8 of the carriers represented and 4 citizens that sit on that board. Everybody that sells insurance under the PMC, which is property and casualty, not just where your homeowners and your dwelling policies lie or under a PNC type policy, has to be in the pool to sell these fair acts. If they want to say, well, we're just not going to sell there, they can say, so get out of the state. If you can't handle a couple of these, we don't want you in the state. We have a really good man in Gornito. He's our commissioner. You may not feel like it right now, but that guy has gone to bat for you in ways you don't know yet. He's told some of them, you just pay those claims. And they're saying, well, we got in our policy where we don't have to. And we say, well, we think that you do have to. So that's going on. And that's the guy doing the arguing for you. He's not elected. He's appointed. And he's a good man. And we have a good insurance department. They're just not big enough. Something like this happens, I mean, it's like overwhelming the local hospital with a plane crash. It's just you can't get enough people. So bear with those people that are doing all they can. They watch our back, by the way. They're policyholder friendly. There are states that are not policyholder friendly. You're in one that is. All right, this is what you're here for. By the way, we're going to talk about some contract stuff here. You need to know this. You're going to go, this is ridiculous, if you haven't already. All right, we're going to have drill down on a DP and an HO2. Dwelling policy, homeowner 2 policy. We're going to talk about the flash grade level readability formula. This was the Journal of Applied Psychology, 1948. Flash produced the readability formula. Now this is interesting. This is, how well do you read? Do you read as good as him, as good as him? These are contracts of adhesion. They need to be read so that you, the consumer, understand them. These aren't between contract. I mean, these are not between lawyers, thank you, attorneys. Hard to get that out of my mouth sometimes. Here's how you do it. Well, if you want to know how, you've got to push this button. Well, first thing you do is you calculate the average number of words used per sentence, then you calculate the average number of syllables per those words, and you multiply that average number of words by 0.39 and add to the average simple number of others go to, bam! I'm like, what? What? What is that? Do you read this and you understand it or do you not? Well, they had to figure out if people are understanding things. Back then, it came out, the Navy did another test. So, your insurance contracts have to have a certain readability. It's a 100-point scale. 100, see, Dick, run. Everybody get that? See, Dick, run is a 100. Our state is with, let's see, Arkansas, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee. Okay, this is a fine group of states. We are at 40. You have to be, at the test quality, a university undergraduate to understand your insurance documents. Well, boy, do we feel stupid. No, you aren't. This state can change this. They can make it 70s like it is in other states. They can make it where you're a 10th grader and you can understand your insurance contract. We are one of these states that's that. That's ridiculous. All right, so the purpose of that slide was just to tell you how silly things are. All right, I love this state, I really do. I really do, I love this state, but I gotta tell you that there's some things you just shake your head at. Okay, here we go, typical drill down. DPs are for secondary vacation homes. We've probably got a dozen mainlanders that have called us, signed up with us and said, you gotta handle this for me, I'm in New York. I'm in Santa Clara. I'm in Pennsylvania, handle it, right? A lot of them have the DPs because they're their vacation homes or they're a rental or something, right? Your HO2s are the most prevalent amongst the HPA's policyholders as sold by producers. What are producers? Insurance agents. Changed maybe 12 years ago. You can't call them an agent anymore because they makes you think that they're your agent. Who are they the agent for? Thank you very much. So it's misunderstood. 3 different ways, right? Worst way is your agents really are for the carrier, and the carriers have them under contract to be controlled a certain way. Now, nothing wrong with it. There's a lot of good agents. I golf every Friday with a bunch of agents. Don't call me on Friday afternoon. I'll tell you that I sit there and I golf with these guys, and we have incredible conversations that go on. And it's not that they don't know. It's not they don't get told, right? They don't get told. They sell the car. They don't fix the car. They sell it. When's the last time you got in a wreck and you went over and you went to the sales guy and said, hey, they sold me a car that won't go through a brick wall? Not gonna happen. Well, we're up to some brick walls here, right? All right, so both policies under Section 1, this is your Section 1, talks about where your limits are. A, your coverage A. Anybody want to guess what an A is? Your dwelling. B, other structures. C, personal property. I got that same girl saying the same thing. D, loss of use. And on the dwelling policy, C and D, fair rental value, additional living expense. So, you see how it all starts with that number, is 5% of that number. C is 50% of that number. Whatever this, when that changes, all this changes, right? These tend to be the call-out numbers, because you can say, I want more. And I tell everybody, get more over here. It doesn't cost that much more, because when we have problems in Hawaii, it ain't over in 3 months. It just isn't. It goes on for years. That's the Aniki people. All right, so let's go to the definitions page. These are always interesting. Definitions are simply you, your, and we, us, and our. That's what they tell you. That's the definitions under the DP, not lava, hurricane, and it's not there. Under the definitions section, that's all you get. HO2, which is the better policy in my opinion, you're the homeowner, right? Definitions are an entire page with 8 headings and other definitions and things like that underneath it. Well, why would that be different? These are contracts of adhesion. What does that mean? They write these policies. You don't get to say, well, I'm going to cross that word out. I don't want to do this. Like, you don't get to do that. No, you can't do that. It's a take it or leave it situation. Who benefits from take it away situations if somebody writes a contract? The policyholder. Wrong. It's the policyholder. Why? Because ambiguity, by the author, favors the policyholder every time. If this ambiguity is there, if you win. That's just how it is. Our court system sees it that way too. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I read. And if it says it's covered, or they misplace what they say is covered or not covered, I'm going to read it in my favor, because I read it in my favor, because it's for you. All right, so we have, let's see, same parties, 40 greater limits of personal property, LA, and certain general liability coverages. I'm just showing you the differences, because I know this gets a little boring, but we're about to drill this down. Personal property policies are HO4s, UOs, unit owners, HO6s. What are those? Condos. All right, here we go. Clausal language means language of a clause relating to certain losses. Coverage A, dwelling. Here we go. The dwelling and the resident premises shown on the declaration. These are verbatim, by the way, right out of your deck page. Right out of your, okay, let's do this. DICE. Never forget DICE from now on the rest of your life. DICE. It's a great, another one of those little acronyms. Can you hear me? I got this one guy does this. It's all about you. Okay, you did, all right. Okay, so DICE means declarations, insuring agreement, conditions, and endorsements. Endorsements. The only way you can change policy language in any of the first three is you add an endorsement to it. It could be a positive endorsement, or it could be negative. No, we're not going to pay for your dead dog. So it's a yes and no's, right? Endorsements are only things that can change that language. It's in those endorsements. All right, there's little other things, folks, but really we'll be here all night if we start. I had to get a root canal. It was painful, but I had to do it. So you have to bear with me as we get drilled down. That's it, there you go. Drill down on this. So DPs, we do not cover other structures used whole or in part, manufacturing or farming, rented or held for rental to any person, not a tenant. So if you got a tenant and they got their stuff in there, is it covered? What's it saying? B. Yeah, sure it is. If they're your tenant. Your tenant's got that garage is yours full, it's covered. Up to a limit, up to certain limits. What do you have on your limits or sublimits? We do not cover other structures, says the same thing. But look at the difference in the language. This says business. This says commercial, manufacturing, or farming. Can anybody guess what's out of this one that's not in this one? Yeah, there you go. But what if you're farming for yourself? What if you're farming and you're under one of the sublimit? These little language changes sound the same, but they're different. Let's get to these differences. C, personal property, DPH2s. We covered, language is the same, so I'm putting them together. At your request, we will cover personal property owned by others while the property is in the part of the resident premises occupied by the garage. Wrong, by the insured. So in other words, one is for the garage. This is personal property, I don't care where it is. Fits in the resident premises. Anything you ever see in parentheses in a policy, you go back to the definition and find it there. People go, why do they keep doing this? I go, because they're trying to tell you to go back and look at the definition, because that's what they're defining. They're defining resident premises as this. It means this. What does it not mean? Well, anything that's not that, right? A guest or a resident employee while the property is in a residence occupied by an insured. So now it gets to move around a bit, right? It's not in that same spot. Again, that's where you look for these coverages. Both DPHO2s have 10 additional PP clauses, personal property clauses, that subject certain losses, money, watercraft, jewelry, firearms, etc., to lower limits. I had a lady had a beautiful, brooch collection. You're $2,500. Why? Because there's a sub-limit for your jewelry of $2,500. If you say, I want more, then you say, well, just tell us what it is. And you pay a little bit more, and all that stuff's covered. But if you just believe that I've got $50,000 in brooches, I'm sorry, but you should have scheduled that. And your agent, your producer, should have told you that. All right, where we, okay, now covers D, fair rental value under the DPs. Fair rental value means the fair rental value of that part of the described location rented is held rented by you by any less any expenses that do not continue while that part of the described location rented or held for rental is not fit to live in. There, how is that for a readability of 40? Come on. What's that saying? And this is what most you may not think about. If you're leasing out your DP property for $1,000, what is the fair rental value? What is it? No. If your neighborhood's renting them out for $1,800, it's $1,800. Don't think that the lease determines the market, right? The rental value does not. Follows the language, same thing. DP if described in A, B, or C by a peril insured against, you're going to see this quite a bit, a peril insured against, we cover additional living expenses. Means any necessary increase in living expenses incurred by you so as that your household can maintain its standard of living. I have one right now, the lady had a flood in her house in Kauai. We're having an argument and through an appraisal, and it's like, she's got herself and her dog, and it's got 5 bedrooms. I said, and you didn't insure that? Of course they did. But they're trying to say, we're just going to get her a small little place over in a condo. We don't need to spend that kind of money. I said, just breach that right now. Just go ahead and breach that, and we'll see it down the road. In the meantime, she got a 5-bedroom house, by the way. So I don't like these. Go back one. Okay, additional living again is that. HO2D is the loss of use. HO2 is which provide general coverage under D. If a civil authority prohibits you from use of the premise as a result of a direct damage to the neighboring premises, we cover additional living expenses for no more than 2 weeks. Show of hands. Who's got any of that going on right now? All right. Who doesn't, but you got it written like this? A couple more hands. How many times were you let back into property by a civil authority? Did you get in? Never? Okay. Did Mr. Kim say, look, show your ID, we'll let you go in, but you got to get your stuff come back out? Have you done that? Have you heard of that? Because that starts another 2 weeks, folks. You don't get 2 weeks of policy. You get 2 weeks. If he opens it, closes it again, 2 more weeks. Understand how it works? This is written in your favor. Sorry, next. Okay, still in drill down. These are places where I'm showing you can get this stuff. Debris removal. So you get your limit. Let's just pick a number. Say it's your dwelling A is $200,000. What's the limit you're going to get paid? Your house is gone. You got to prove it. Who said that? Get out of here. No. Here's how this works. The value of your house could be $300,000, right? So I'll run it through my depreciation schedules. If you got a $200,000 poly, I'll do this because they may have co-insurance. Let's say it's $250,000. Your house is worth $250,000. You've insured it for $2. We run it through the formula. I depreciate it down to $22,000. I depreciate $22,000. I'm trying to pick around 10% number, but it varies. Then I go, and you got this. Another 5% debris removal of A. Oh my God, what did I just find you? 10 grand. All right. Trees, shrubs, and plants. If anything out there is still alive, I'm pretty sure 5% of 2 is another 10 we found you. So what are we at? We're at, we're down to 220. Your limit's 200, right? I'm still going to keep going up. Next slide. Reasonable repairs does not increase the limit of their liability, and it does not relieve you of the duties. Property removed. I saw a bunch of trucks leaving with a whole bunch of people's stuff just going down the road this morning. Do you think they understand that that's all covered? Do you think you had a moving company go pick that stuff up and move it out of the way of a pending loss, a peril that's insured against? It's covered. That move. You let it fall off the truck, that's your problem. Because that's your responsibility, right? All right, next. DPs, HO2s, perils insured against. Now you're getting real finite. Yeah, somebody's seen it. Yes, ma'am. One, please. Don't anybody else do that to me. Back one. But we ensure, this is language out of almost most of the policies. I can't guarantee you because all these policies are different, but I know right now that things are in your favor more than you think it is sitting here. We ensure covered property. What's covered property? Anything under A, B, and C, right? Anything that's under your, against direct loss from any cause while being removed from the premise, endangered by a peril insured against, and for no more than 30 days while removed. There it's paid for. At least in this one policy, it's for 30 days. What is that? Storage fees? But if you're moving it to some other place or some other property or some friend's house, like that whole move is covered. As long as it's a peril insured against, right? We're going to get to that. Here's where we get fun here. I'm sorry I'm edging you folks out. I can't get any smaller. DPHO2's perils insured against. Oh my God, there it is. We were talking about that. There it is. Perils insured against. We insure for direct physical loss to the property covered caused by, unless the loss is excluded unless it's excluded in the general exclusions. Back to section 1, right? Insuring agreement. Fire. Is that covered? That's what I want to hear. You're following me. This stuff is all covered, right? Under these DPs and HO2s. Smoke. Meaning. We're going back to this word meaning. Sudden and accidental damage from smoke. This peril does not include loss caused by smoke from agricultural, smudge, industrial operations. There's gas under this policy, asphalt, any of that covered? Is it from agricultural, sludge, or industrial operations? No. The word meaning is on. Let's go to the next slide here. Okay, DP's peril insured against, it's still running, the 10th thing. These are all standard under DPs and HO2s. These are called named perils. These things are a named peril. But people go, I have an all risk. What you have is an HO3. We'll cover anything, but not this, this, and this. So that's not all perils. However, if it happens because of this, then it is covered again. Yeah, I know. I get the same look from all of you. That makes no sense, but that's how they do it. Let's go. Weight of ice. You know how we get that over here all the time. Weight of ice. Accidental discharge or overflow of water. Sudden accidental tearing apart, cracking, burning, or sludge pipe. Sudden and accidental tearing apart, cracking, burning, or pipes. We've had during a Zell, where the wind just cracked the pipe, and it wouldn't have been a big deal, but it flooded the whole house. They're like, well, that was a windstorm. I said, nope, that's a crack pipe. Bam, right there. Now, 14, the last thing under these broad policies is volcanic eruption other than the losses caused by earthquake, land shocks, right? Insured against volcanic eruptions other than caused by earthquake, land shocks. If you had your house shaken apart and fell to the ground, they're going to go right here. We haven't got the lava, have we? Let's keep going here. HO2's added coverage. So DP, these are the same. HO2's add 15 and 16. Freezing. You know, a lot of that down here in Puna. Like right now, the sonic. Turn it on, please. Sudden accidental damage from artificially generated electric currents. What is that? It's a generator. Artificially generated electric current. Why? Because what happens is people get in their houses. They're like this. They don't have any power, and Billy electrician takes a 10K generator and hooks it up to their house and gets it wrong and it fries it. You have an HO2 versus a DP, you're covered. All that electronics, all that wiring, all gets replaced. Next slide. All right, this is my favorite slide. DPs, HO2s, general exclusions. Ordinance and law, what is that? Ordinance and law. The county says you got to put water heaters in. I got to put water heaters in. Yeah, you got to put solar panels in. Happened in Maui. You're required to put your solar water heater panels. But they're not going to cover that. You got to go do that. But if you have a fire and you got to go build another house, the ordinance and law kicks in, because ordinance and law coverage then says, hey, it's only when you're rebuilding or you're having to do something like remove the asbestos and things like that. There may be asbestos causes, but we have good carriers. They take care of it. Just remember that these ordinance and laws are because of something happening that had nothing to do with the government. Meaning, they make a rule, all new remodels any more than 50%, all those kind of rules. If they say you need this, you need to upgrade your electric on the electrical inspector, the house gets rewired. Earth's movement, I just love this part right here. Earth's movement, meaning, this is out of Black's Law Dictionary, 10th edition, some of you may know what Black's Law is. Meaning is the sense of anything, but especially of words. I love that. What is it doing? Earth movement, this is exactly, meaning earthquake, during, after volcanic eruption, landslides, mine subsidence, mud flows, unless was directly caused by fire, explosion, breakage of glass, and ensues, so direct loss by this ensues, and then we will, well, they give it back to you, don't they? If it happens because of that, they give it back. Water damage is number 3. Number 4, power. But if a peril insured against ensues, we will pay only for the ensuing loss. Gives it back. Just look for that word, guys. Meaning, the sense of anything. And then the last ones are neglect, war, nuclear hazard. So we get bombed by North Korea. We got this. They're going to throw this at us and that. Outside of the nuclear weapon, we got to get into war. Yeah, so they're going to exclude all that. Earth movement does not mean lava flow, magma, DP, and HO2 policies, folks. There was coverage right there. Got it? If you have a FAIR Act, you go right here. Earth movement, it does not mean that, because this is all that means. That's how you drill down your policy. Start here, and then you go to the next thing, go to the next thing, you just keep drilling it down, you keep looking. Don't thumb through them, right? Because you got to go this, and then you go to this, and then you go to this, and then you get right here. Oh, I'm covered. Okay? Everybody get that, drilling down? I think I'm at the end here of mine, but I don't remember if I'm at the end. Oh, yeah, I'm at the end, folks. There you go. We have, if you have signed it, the question was, okay, we're on break, okay? We're on break. But for 15 minutes, I'm going to be up here. Yes, ma'am. Are you Judy? You Judy Moa? You look like Judy. How you doing, Judy? This is one of the adjusters here, Mount Hilo. How you doing, Judy? Can we get her a mic? Yeah, actually, she'll pass the mic around. But let's get Judy. Yeah. The cap right there. Judy Moe is one of your local insurance adjusters here. Lives in this district, this area.
It's hard. Can you hear me?
There we go. We hear you, Judy.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I had 4 statements I wanted to make, and then I have 2 questions for you, Robert. But first and foremost...
Well, let's start with questions.
Okay, but first and foremost, we need to recognize this is a very serious event. This is no laughing matter. So in terms of that, I'd like all of you to please give a moment for those people that have lost everything and those people that are displaced. So please, just a moment.
All right, everybody, please. Okay, Judy, what was your question?
Thank you. I'm not here in an adversarial stance whatsoever. I'm here in an informative stance. I'm a broker in the state of Hawaii, and I'm also a retired FEMA catastrophe adjuster. So I've worked with Robert and many other public adjusters for years, okay? What I'd like to say first off is, Sandy, I'm going to cut you a break because you're from California. Robert, you live here since 1985. You should have the understanding that fire covers lava in the state of Hawaii. It's an all perils policy. The only thing that is excluded is flood, earthquake, and hurricane. Oh, somebody doesn't want to hear me, sorry.
Oh, we want to make sure you're on the film. We're giving the advice.
Anyways, let me go on. So when our insurance commissioner came out and said you folks have, if you have a fire policy, you have coverage by lava. Understand that's true. Okay, that's true. If you have a home in a lava zone 1
you have the opportunity to buy a policy that excludes lava. And I'm sorry to say it so frankly, you have no coverage, not for the dwelling, not for loss of use, not for personal property, if you have a lava exclusion in lava zone 1.
That it?
Okay?
Is that it?
No, that's
Because you're giving legal advice right now. I'm gonna make
No,
you
I'm
mad.
not. I'm declaring
I'm sorry, I really,
policy.
you know, I just want to interrupt you. No disrespect, okay?
None meant either on this, but
But I
certainly we
know
want
that
people
some
to
of
be
the
informed.
I know that I have to say that some of the things you're saying are incorrect. And I'm an attorney, and I've looked at this for a month, and I've met with people, and I've attended webinars. Mr. Ito, what he stated only applied. It only applied to HPIA policies. We know
Incorrect.
we know that people in these areas have a specific lava exclusion from Lloyd's of London. I have seen it.
That would be
And
in lava
Mis-
zone 1 if they
and-
bought it, correct.
And Mr. Ito has already retracted and corrected what he said. And
Because
so,
he didn't include lava zone 1.
and so, ma'am, you know, these people have come here to provide information, and I would like
Thank
to
you.
give them that floor. And so I would just like to have this stage for people that have questions. And if
And I
you
do
would
have
like,
a question. I
and-
do.
and-
I have two.
okay, then please ask your questions. Thank you so much.
Yes, and along the lines of that comes a couple of statements. There's only two issues here. Total loss or loss of use. Sorry, sir, I have customers in this room and they need to be informed. So, total loss or loss of
All right.
use?
Are you, actually, you're an
I'm-
adjuster. You're not. If you're saying that you're a broker and you're representing people, and you're
I own
claiming
MOA
by-
Insurance Services Hawaii.
All right, all
I've
right.
had an agency for
But
40
Judy,
years.
Judy.
So
seriously.
sorry, Robert. I don't mean to rain on your parade. When we
It's
need
not
you,
a
I'm sure
parade.
I will call you.
Nobody is here
And
on
that
a
will be
parade.
when insurance carrier does not act in good faith. That's when we will call you. In terms of your adjuster, he's not the end of the day. It's your agent. Call your agent. Get them to find out what's going on. And right now, you know, in terms of patients, yeah, it's difficult.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but this is just not your show, and we're gonna have to cut you off, okay? This is not a show for adjusters. This is not a show for insurance folk. This is a show for homeowners to ask their questions, ma'am. Please, please. Who has a question who is a homeowner and not an insurance rep? Ma'am, please.
My policy is a RLI who took over an HPIA policy. They rolled over a number of policies to private companies, and mine says lava surcharge included. What does that give me?
Okay, I'm going to tell you this right now. I need to see the rest of that policy. But if you got a lava surcharge, sometimes it's district driven, and sometimes it's because they're doing something about a surcharge, right? So if we can see the rest of that policy, RLI is a good. Tate runs that claim side, is a good person, and they look for policy. Their job is them to find you coverage, not find out how to get rid of coverage, right? That's what you just heard. How to get rid of coverage. We're trying to tell you how you get coverage. And a lot of these adjuster claims management people and the carriers themselves are good people to work with. But you just got some people that do not understand how this works. So if I can see that policy,
I'll make it clear. Mr. Mark.
she's been patient. Can we get to?
I love my house really long and I'm employed. And I've got some really bad information. I talked to the governor, he got me in touch with an insurance investigator, and she told me that Lloyd is not licensed to sell insurance in the state of Hawaii, and they don't have to follow any law. The governor's, I met him at the meeting, and he said he was going to look into it with the attorney general and the strategy. Do you know anything about this? Because they're trying to, like, not pay me any of my attention, any loss of use, any contents. They're trying to take a $90,000 depreciation and government costs per year. So, you notice that?
All I can tell you is that Lloyd's has risen to the top of the Brewers bubble here. It's you've probably got 6 to 8 people you've heard from on this issue, and that issue is we're not going to cover lava. Right? It's just that. And so I've got to we have somebody now, Lisa Centerman from up on the ridge, is sending us that Lloyd's, because it's like if you give me a piece of paper, you see how I drill down, I find it, I see what's excluded, now I look for the definition of lava. I want to see if that is defined. I'm saying I would need to see the full policy. I mean, and that's I'm sure everybody brought a policy, but try and drill it down a bit and then give us a call, because I can go so far, but that's so specific I can't. But if you signed it and you said Lloyd's is mine, we're putting it all together is what we're doing. So we can get this defined correctly. And like I said, I can show you how to drill it down. But you can imagine, if you've got there's an RLI here, there's by pyramid. Yeah. Well, Lloyd's, I was talking about everybody that sells that. Lloyd's is, okay, so what you have is mainland coverage. So we're local, right? Foreign is the United States. I know that sounds weird, but that's how it's defined. Lloyd's of London is alien. Doesn't that fit? Lloyd's of London is alien because they are beyond the United States. So, if there's coverage that we find, I want them to stand with one of our great attorneys in front, or one of your great attorneys, in front of a Puna jury and explain it. Because nothing goes to the court around here that we don't think ought to go. We're saying you don't have it. But we can't be the ones giving you that advice. We're public adjusters. But we can get real damn close. And then if they don't listen, it doesn't matter. I have had Lloyd's completely deny a $1.4 million fire loss in Maui. And it took me a long time. It took me 5 months, and I got $1.4 million out of them. No attorneys. They denied it. Yes, ma'am. Mike? Somebody got the mic?
I have a question about inaccessibility. If your house is not damaged, but inaccessible, uninhabitable, my insurance carrier said that's not covered. And I wonder how
Your insurance carrier or your agent or your producer?
My agent.
Folks, I can't tell you this. I can't tell you how many times there's always wrong. There's always some agent producer that says no. How do they make their money? It's off your premiums. There's nothing wrong with that, right? We're all in the business of getting by and making money. There's nothing wrong with that. And this is an odd thing in this state. They can sit there and write a check for that camera got stolen that plane. They can say, well, my God, she does $20,000 a year with us. That agent can't write that check. Say, hey, we won't even turn in a claim. Right? Let me just take care of it. They're not do that. Do they do that? No.
But is there any precedent for inaccessible homes like we're having here?
Well, I'd have to say I've seen the policies that have to say, yeah. How's that your standard of living? How are you back to where you were just prior to it, as long as it's a peril insured against, right? If you don't have a flood insurance policy and your house gets flooded, right? I can't help you. I mean, you don't have the policy that covers it. That's the 2 weeks. No, answer. Give me your policy. I can't. It's everybody wants to think. I did 2 side-by-side policies, and you see how they start changing little things. I can't tell you yes or no. Everybody understand what I'm saying? There's ways. There's ways. That's civil authority. Now let's say he lists it. Is the health department saying don't breathe the air as civil authority? Yes. 2 more weeks. I mean, you can almost keep doing this. But again, if you have one that's insured, a peril insured against, then that carrier should be doing a decent thing and providing coverage for you, right? Civil authority says get out. You don't have utilities because this has burnt your utilities and things like that from a fire, right? Where it's surface you're off the grid, right? Not by your choice. So depending on which policy it is, most of them would cover that. But somebody says, well, I got an RLI and I got a Lloyd's. I can tell you right now, I could do 2 pieces of paper side by side. This opening section 1 of each one of those are completely different. One's manuscript, right? What's manuscript? State Farm, Farmers, Allstate. They have sort of their own policies and their own ways. We get along State Farm, Farmers people, Allstate people. They're nationals. Those people, those brokers simply only sell those things. They don't sell like independents. Like say, I went out there, I got 17 quotes for you. I'm independent. I'm not tied to any tree. Oh, yeah, we got a whole question and answer after this too. I'm going to go this way. Yes. Anywhere from 10 to 15%, depending on difficulty of what we see. Yeah. Yeah, I think we should. You know, we're getting right here, we're getting the legality issues. We want to probably go ahead and bring the lawyers in, right? Attorney. Yes, I have 2 of those letters in my possession. That sure seems like a pretty higher authority, and put that in front of an attorney, I'm pretty sure they're going to say, I don't see love on that letter. And it's the county saying it. 2 of them, both of them are from the mainland. Yes. I'm sorry? Well, when we get hired, we immediately give them notice that we are in charge of this loss. You have a claim, it's not their claim. So you're going to be making a claim. And if you haven't made a claim, you just write them and you do this to your agent, the producer. It's under HRS 431-226. It says, notify your producer. They must give you a written copy of the certified policy. I've had to, and they can do it electronically, or they got to do it within 14 days, right? You want that. And why? Because the agent leaves stuff out. And I'm looking at all these forms here. I'm looking for 27 forms listed, endorsements that change this policy. You gave me none. Well, they don't matter. Yeah, all right, that's right. I'm sorry, you're an agent. I forgot. Yeah.
Aloha, I just wanted to thank you very much for what you're doing. I know it's difficult.
Thank you. Thank you.
God bless you and aloha. But I have both a home, my residence, which is right near Fisher number 8 in Malama Street. And then I had a B&B rental in Lanipuna Gardens, which it's rather difficult to tell, but somebody who flew over in a helicopter said it was no longer there, so I'm waiting for official. But what kind of shocked me, and I'd never heard it before, was when I called my agent. I believe he's just an agent. He sells for different companies. The one in Lanipuna Gardens was covered by Lloyd's of London, and it was a rental, a B&B. And he asked me how much was the rental income. Well, I was thinking gross, because I can just look on Airbnb and see what came in, but that's not, net. Anyway, so I gave a figure, and he says, oh, you're really underinsured. And I said, what does that mean? I mean, like when you sold me the policy, I just told you everything, and I figured you were just covering my butt.
Okay, let me get to where you're going with this.
Okay, but wait, this is really...
You're giving us a speech. I got these people on.
Okay, he said, because I'm underinsured, 50% of the value of the policy would be cut off, not just for the rental
I understand. This is questions. I have got one. Give me one.
Okay, so is that actually possible that Lloyd's of London can cut my policy in half? If it's 300,000, it's now 100.
Yes, it's possible. However, that being said, I want your agent now, because how many times did an agent go out to your house and say, yeah, I think a house is worth this much? There's an agent again. Agents typically have E&O insurance. Errors and omissions, everybody knows what that is. They made an error or they omitted something. I got to tell you, if I find out that we got the same agent selling Lloyd's policies that are in fire zones that aren't, boy, I got to tell you, that person may not have a good year, or a decade. Last question with the guy in the black hat, please, and then we're going to go to the lawyers.
My name is Stan. I'm native Hawaiian, born and raised in Hawaii. I had a home in Vacation Land. But I hear home, contents. I don't hear land value. Why is that? I mean, if we paid fee simple, don't we own the land that the house is sitting on? And why aren't we being compensated for that?
One of the number one things, you don't get to say, I want everything covered, my land and everything. It doesn't matter. Land is not insured, folks. Water is not insured. The lake in your water is not insured. The bank on it, the pier, maybe. But it's not, if you don't, why not? Because they'd be out of business. They don't insure land anywhere. Mountaintops, anywhere. Land is not insured. And it's a reason. And this is one of them. But I'm not saying it's fair. This is life. Pretty sure it's not fair. But the land is not covered under insurance. I don't know of one. State Farm? I don't know of one, right? Never seen one. I've never seen one. I mean, they insure stuff on land, stuff that happens on land, but they don't insure the land itself. Now, that's ridiculous, I know, but that's just life.
show of hands of who has voice in this room. So we have got a lot of people.
All right, so make sure you tell me whether you got the lava excursion or not. Who does not have a lava excursion? Exclusion. Like, I've told the excursion. All right, so you do not have an exclusion or you do have an exclusion? Hands up if you do have the exclusion. All right, if you put your hands up, put these down, if you, or the other way, you have it. These are the haves and the have-nots, right, on that? Now we'll find out. We'll find out. Well, whether it was in Lloyd's. Yeah, if you have lava, we've already got a couple that are just straight up there lava covers. They're written out of, I think Sub had one. Yeah, whatever. Whatever. So but we really want to get to the attorneys. We're going to talk a lot more after this. Let's let these guys, these talented people, explain where we are, and then we can pick this back up again. Is everybody okay with that? Because these people have flown in here.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Okay. Hi, so my name is Bill Heflin. I am an attorney here in Hilo. I do personal injury law. So this is kind of a little bit outside of my area. However, I am here to talk to you a little bit about submitting a claim, how the process works, and if you're not able to resolve that claim through the claim process, what are your alternatives? So for the purpose of this conversation, I'm going to assume, we're going to assume that you have coverage. All the issues that we have about whether things are covered or not doesn't have anything to do with what I'm about to talk to you. What I'm about to talk to you about is assuming you have coverage and you submit a claim. Okay, so the claim process begins with you notifying your insurance company that you have a loss. In this particular case, that loss would be real property or personal property. I regret to inform you that under Hawaii law, all you're going to do is collect for the loss of the value of the personal property or the real property. You're not going to be able to collect any money regarding emotional distress, pain, and suffering. Those things are not covered under property damages. So you would only be able to recover for the value of your real property or the value of the personal property that you lost. Okay. The first thing that you should do before you submit the claim is make sure you have all the paperwork or evidence necessary to prove your claim. And what I mean by that is if you lost your property, you need to be able to show them you lost your property. That shouldn't be that difficult in this particular situation, when they can go down there and look and see that the house is gone. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to do some questions later. Right now we're just talking about submitting the claim. Some of the things that you're talking about there I think will also be addressed by the next speaker when it comes to bad faith denials. Okay. Right now we're just talking about submitting the claim. Okay. When you submit the claim, you need to prove that your real property has been lost. You need to prove what the value of your real property is. To do that, you probably should consult with a licensed estimator, appraiser. Thank you, that's the right word. Some people try to just submit things like on your county tax records. I think you all know that your county tax records are slightly below the actual value. So if you're talking to the insurance company and saying, hey, I lost my house, and they go, oh, the tax value is $200,000, here's $200,000. We all know that's not right, okay? Your real property value is almost certainly more than that. You need to consult with a licensed adjuster. Regarding your personal property, the first thing you do should make an inventory of all the personal property you lost. Just sit there and write down every single thing that you've lost, your clothing, your appliances, all of those things. Okay. After you do all of that, your next question is going to be, how do I prove I lost all of those things? Okay. This could sometimes be a problem. Some people, and I'm not one of them, are very organized and they've taken photographs and they've pre-done all these inventories and
They've got estimates for all of their jewelry. Great. If you're not one of those people and you're like me, you're going to have to go back. Luckily, I think most of us do a lot of purchases with our credit cards. You might be able to contact your credit card company and look back and see what some of the values of those things are. Hopefully you may have photographs and other things regarding what your personal property is worth. Okay. When you get all of those things together, then you contact the adjuster who's assigned to your claim and you submit a demand. Okay, and it's just what it sounds like. You basically put a packet together regarding the value of your property, the value of all your personal property. You submit it to them. Most adjusters are professionals. We tend to disagree greatly on the value of the things that we lose, but hopefully you'll be able to discuss this with them. Hopefully they'll be able to give you the amount that you deserve. Okay. So let's move on from that and talk about what happens if you have a dispute. Okay, so obviously I have not read all of your insurance policies, but I'm 99.99% sure they contain a clause called an arbitration clause. The hundreds of insurance policies I've reviewed over the years always have an arbitration clause. So what is arbitration? Arbitration is an adversarial process, kind of like going to court, but it's a little bit abbreviated. Instead of having a judge make a decision, you're going to have a neutral arbitrator sit there and evaluate both sides. Like, this is what I think I deserve. Here's all the receipts. Here's everything. These are all the things I've lost. The insurance company may come in and say, yeah, we don't think you had that. We disagree on the value of this. Okay. And at the end of the day, the arbitrator will make the decision. If you go to arbitration, it's possible to represent yourself. I would think that's probably not in your best interest. So you probably should try to consult with an attorney. Unfortunately, my office doesn't do that. We just do personal injury, but there are people who do arbitration regarding property loss. I do know that there also have the public adjusters who might be a resource. If you do represent yourself, which I do not recommend, there are some other resources in the community that you could look out to. I don't know if any of you have tried or been there yet. We do have a Hilo Self-Help Center at the courthouse. They're open on Tuesdays and Fridays from 11:15 to 12:45. It's first come, first served. There's no reservations. It's staffed by volunteer attorneys. Some of the attorneys will be familiar with some of the questions that you have and will give you the best information they can to help you. Some of the attorneys may not be so familiar with your areas of concern, so you probably would have to come back again. But that's the basic process. You have submitting of a claim. When you submit your claim, you do need to have all of your receipts, so to say, together to show the value of what you've lost. If you are unable after a period of time to get to the resolution that you want, your remedy will probably be arbitration. And let me take a step back. So I told you before, every one of you is probably going to have a arbitration clause, and then I just said probably. It is possible that when you speak to the adjuster, you guys might be close. You guys may not be that far away from it, and either you or the adjuster may recommend mediation. And let me take a step back. The insurance company does not have to agree to mediation. That's just something that you might be able to propose to them. So, what is mediation? Mediation is basically a process where you and the insurance company will try to come to a mutual agreement. To go to mediation, you would have to agree to it. You'd have to get the insurance company to agree to it, and then you would both have to pay half the costs. So it's not going to be free. Then you guys are going to have to pick the mediator. Excuse me, I'm kind of getting dry here. A mediator, if you go to a good trained mediator, we have a few here on the island. Sometimes we have to go to Oahu for the mediations. They usually cost anywhere from $200 to $500 an hour. Usually if you do it, they usually require you to pay half up front, so either you or the mediator usually pay between $2,500 to $5,000. Sorry, the other side usually pays between $2,500 to $5,000 to get the mediation going. The nice thing about mediation is you agree to it. If they give you a number that you don't agree with, you can walk away and then try the arbitration. Let me kind of go back. I think I may not have talked completely about the arbitration. The arbitration, if you go to that process because you're unable to reach an agreement, you will also have to pay half the cost too. Arbitration is 50-50, so both you and the insurance company would pay 50% of those costs. And as I recommended before, you shouldn't do it by yourself because they're going to send an attorney and the adjuster down to that arbitration to talk to the arbitrator. So you'd be a lot better off having somebody who's familiar with the process representing you. So generally speaking, as I just said, that is the claim process, and that is the remedies if they don't, if you're unable to resolve it through that process. Generally speaking, in Hawaii, you're not allowed to sue your insurance company unless they deal with you in bad faith. And from what I can see, the next speaker is going to talk to you a little bit about that. I'm going to touch on it a little bit. So as I said, when you sign up for your insurance, there's small print that nobody ever reads that says if you have a dispute with the insurance company, you're going to agree to the arbitration. The insurance company is supposed to treat you with good faith. We can disagree not whether insurance companies will treat us with good faith or not, but if they are denying some of the things that you are entitled to, and you think that they're doing this on purpose and not treating you with good faith, you do have the option to sue them for a bad faith claim. That is also something that you should not do by yourself, and you should consult with an expert, and that's not my area, so I'll defer that to the next person. Kind of going through this really quick, let me just also tell you, in my experience, when I'm dealing with an insurance adjuster and I'm trying to resolve this, I usually try to be polite. There's a saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Okay. But sometimes, no matter how persistent and polite you are, things don't go the way they should if you want them to. So in those kinds of situations, I usually ask to speak to your supervisor. Right? If you think that you should be getting the attention or the results that you think you should be getting, and you're not getting it, there's always somebody else who's in charge over them. Okay. I also tend to memorialize my conversations with adjusters if I think there's going to be a problem. And what I mean by that is, in addition to writing everything down on Tuesday, Thursday, June 7th, I spoke to Adjuster John Doe at 2 o'clock. I usually make sure every time I talk to somebody, I ask, who are you? What's your name? I usually ask them, hey, do you have an email address? And then often after I get off the phone with them, I send them an email. So, hey, John, it was a pleasure talking to you this afternoon. It's my understanding that you are going to do this, and you want me to get this, and I'll be talking to you once we get all of these things done. I just kind of do that as a matter of course, and that tends to save me a lot of heartbreak later on. If I ever have a dispute with an adjuster or an insurance company, if they ever say, well, you never told us this, you never told us that, I can always refer them, well, hey, I had this email between me and John Doe on Thursday, June 7th that laid out everything that we had just talked about. So that's basically the process of submitting a claim and the remedies that you have if you're unable to resolve it through the claim process. Basically it's going to be arbitration. If you're fortunate, you may be able to do a mediation. And if you, at the end of the day, feel that you've been dealt with in bad faith, that they've just denied your claims improperly, you should consult with somebody who specializes in a bad faith defense, so you may be able to see whether you can deal with them in court.
The bus that goes to Waianae is called the Country Express. I am from the country. I am not a Honolulu attorney. I just want to be clear. I usually start any discussion with a joke, except we're talking about homes, your memories, all that, and I don't find that humorous at all. and I don't know how to break the tension, so I don't think I'll try. Or I could tell an attorney joke, because those are always funny. But I won't. Bill is correct on a couple things he said about insurance and the third party, which is what he deals with, personal injury. That's third party insurance, your auto insurance, all that. You cannot sue your insurance company in a third party claim. Your homeowner's insurance is first party. It's a contract between you and the insurance company. And because of that, there is an ability to sue your insurance company. I'm not advocating that. My hope is that I never get to know anyone really in this room, because that means you got what you deserved and you got what you needed. There are remedies if there are problems with your claim. Bill referenced arbitration. It is actually in your policy. It's called appraisal, and it's a little different. But you can trigger it, or the insurance company can trigger it. It means there's coverage, but you disagree on value. Okay? It's the only remedy you as an insured have under the policy to challenge the value. You would invoke it. You actually need to appoint an appraiser, your appraiser. The insurance company will appoint their appraiser. Two-party appointed appraisers will then select what's called the umpire. That is what Bill's referencing as an arbitrator. That is a neutral, doesn't choose a side. The two appraisers attempt to settle the value of the claim. If they do, fine, umpire is not needed. If they can, they then turn to the umpire, and whatever differences they have, the umpire will then decide. It takes 2 out of 3 people to agree on a value to set the amount of loss on your claim. That is what Bill referenced as the arbitration provision. It is the appraisal provision, but Hawaii treats it like arbitration. There's a statute that governs it and the rules. I hope none of you have to get involved with that. My experience mostly is that when you're adjusting a claim, you can get all the things Bill said to do, all the things everyone else said to do. They will work with you and try to get you settled. There is a huge issue out here on coverage. That's different. Okay? Now, the remedies that I talk when they use the term bad faith, I don't want to get legal, but it's a tort. It's a kind of injury. You have a contract. Contract says you get what you paid for. Okay? No pain and suffering, right? None of that stuff. It's just the value on the front. Your loss was X. You get that. That's what you get. There is an opportunity maybe for some attorney fees by statute, maybe, if you had to sue. That's it. Bad faith is something different. There is a statute that says there are certain unfair claims practices that the insurance company can't do. I like to twist it, because that's our legislator. They write things in like a double negative that's hard to read, almost like a policy. I don't know if we're at 40 or 50 or whatever Robert's scale is when we look at statutes, but the statute basically, the important things to know is that we keep saying contact in writing. When you submit something in writing, they by law have 15 business days to respond to you in writing. The clock will start. If they don't, that would be a breach. But they can't just acknowledge that they received your notice. They need to reply with specificity of what they're including and what they aren't. I hear everyone today saying they've contacted somebody, I've been denied. I ask you this, have you formally submitted your claim yet? Have you gotten a written denial yet? If you haven't, and probably haven't, the clock really hasn't started. So you need to do that. Alright? The other thing is, once you agree upon an amount, they basically have 30 days to pay you by statute. There's a whole slew of other things. I'm not going to bore you with them. If we're and looking at unfair claims practices, we're way down the road from where you are today. Way down the road. Okay? That means the process didn't work. Something in the process didn't work. And then you can sue your insurance company. Now you're going to ask very specific questions that are next to impossible to answer, because without the policy in front of you, I can't tell you, no one can tell you exactly what you got or don't have. Okay, so you need the policy. And they differ all the time. Okay, and you just saw by raise of hands, some have not, things like that. Policies from their own companies will be different. My hope is that everybody can get their claim taken care of. The issue, most foremost, I hear, is coverage. Okay? And coverage is a difficult thing. If there's exclusions, and these contracts are written so absurdly to understand. They cover everything, then they take it away, and then they add it back. And you're trying to figure out what words matter, all that. Little words, Robert, I think, showed how little words can make a difference. It's all true, so it's going to be very difficult to answer any questions. I'm not here to advocate suing an insurance company. It's a last resort. There are things within the policy to resolve, and there are things that the legislature has done to help you. The appraisal clause is one of them, but even that is a last resort. It's confusing documents, they're difficult to read, there's this question of proof, all those things. Once you start litigating, it's a different realm, but there's a concept, and Bill said it without saying. Remember law school, re ipsa, loquitur, basically says, re ipsa says, in the absence of everything else, the house was there, lava came through, the house is gone. What else could have happened? It didn't get up and leave, it's not Wizard of Oz, the lava, right, came through. But it doesn't end there, right? How did it come through? At what speed did it come through? Was there a fire? Was there debris that came down? There's all these things that are specific. You're so early in the process that it's hard to know where it's going to go. But start. You've gotten great comments about what you can do. I don't think, I'm an optimist, okay? I'm a half full glass kind of guy, all right? So I think you proceed and keep going and ask the questions and work with either professionals or your adjuster or your broker and be persistent. You should hopefully do fine, okay? I really believe that. What I'm here to tell you is that if it falls apart, there's other remedies, but I really hope nobody in this room has to go to those. We're talking about homes, memories, all sorts of things that are either lost, destroyed. No amount of money is going to make up for that. I know that. That's why I'm here. I got asked to just come. I really don't want to talk about the unfair claims practices. I really want to believe that it's going to be fair. Fair doesn't mean it won't be a fight, okay? A fair fight, as long as it's fair. That's all you really want. And again, it's a contract. You got a bargain. What did you bargain for? Jill has asked me, and I don't know how to do this, to try to address this Lloyd's question. And I really don't know how to do it because I don't know the language, I don't know the exclusion, I don't know what went on. All I can tell you is that file your claim, get a written denial, because they're going to tell you why. Otherwise, you're guessing. And your broker and your agent, all those people are good people, but they're not the ones going to make that decision. It's the claims department for the insurance company or the claims adjuster who's handling it that's going to tell you specifically why. And until you get that, you don't know how to respond. Okay? So go through the process. I don't know. I'll be happy afterwards to talk to anyone, because when we start talking about coverage and what's in and out, those are very specific things. There's something called an attorney-client privilege, right? So if I have it in this open forum, there is no privilege. There's nothing. And I am here, and I do this in my practice. All right, Legal Aid and Y&I will refer cases that they can. They will always give them my number, because I will take the call, and I will talk to somebody, and I won't charge them for it, because I just want to try to help. That's what I do. I'm here because I didn't know anything about this Lloyd's of London exclusion issue. I knew nothing about it until I got here. Okay? But I'll be happy to talk often. It's very hard to talk to the specifics. I did hear that the legislature or the governor already knows and stuff. Political things run different than contracts. So that's a good thing to hear. Okay? Politics trumps whatever's underwritten. I've heard the comment about Lloyd's not being licensed. I don't know what that means. And I'm sure the answer you got was from somebody who probably doesn't know exactly what that means and is guessing. So, I really don't have anything else to add other than I'll be happy to talk and stay as long as I need to. I am not, and just try to help through, understand what's going on with certain cases, because you buy a property, your home is your biggest asset for most people, right? And it's emotionally your biggest asset. You buy insurance to protect it, and you sure hope that's what you get. And you're very early in the process. And I'm not going to beat up the insurance company, other people might, because you haven't given them a chance to get it right yet. And remember, fair fight. Fair fight. Be persistent, right? Don't take no for an answer. There's creative ways to find out whatever it is you think you have. And if you submit and go, oh, wait, I forgot, let them know. All right? So I'm going to be honest with you. I normally dress like everyone in this room, and I, out of respect coming here, put on my kind of lordly Friday outfit and feel rather awkward right now, because this is not who I normally am. But it is. But I did out of respect for you, because I got a call, and they said there were going to be probably a lot of people very concerned, want to know the process. Just like when I go into court, I put a suit on, it's out of respect to the judge. I do this out of respect for you. I wish everyone hopefully gets this awful tragedy resolved. So I'm going to try one little kid's joke, and then we can take question. Alright, it's audience participation. So, knock knock. Boo. Don't worry, it's not that bad. It's okay. It'll be okay. Thank you.
So do we want to open it up to questions?
I'm Hart Phillips, and the majority of our people lost their houses, very rapidly in one day or 2 days. And accordingly, with the overflights of the helicopters, some people had the privilege of getting their houses photographed burning. Other ones just don't have houses anymore because it was at night and no overflights. Is that going to impact our ability to make a case? Well, we can always make a claim, but no, a case for our house burning because we don't have a picture of it.
Worse than we do. So, you make the claim by starting off by writing your agent saying, I haven't taken a loss at this address under this policy. You send it to the agent. You don't need to talk to the agent again, honestly, because from that moment on, they're not involved in this process. They want to be because they want you to renew. They want to be because they want you to renew. That's how they make their money. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, I say it again, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you are telling your agent over the phone, and she or he, or somebody like Judy Ma, who is telling you stuff, and nothing's in writing, stop it. Put it in writing and see what happens. Just because I'll tell you, if you don't put that in writing again, it's like Tom says, you don't start. Your claim is tolling, but so is the tolling of your claim. There's toll periods. Must do this in 60 days. Must do this in 180 days. Must do this in 1 year. And it's running on some of you. So don't think that there's not a clock running. You have under your duties. You go to the area of your policy. Every one of them has this. Your duties under the policy. Very first one is the must provide prompt notice. And if you think they're going to say, this is what he said or this is what she says, they're not going to go, well, they make it sound like it was serious. He only lost his house, but so we didn't start a claim. Just put that in writing. So that's that claim answer. The case has to do with you are getting things filmed out there that are by government officials. You don't have to. I take a government official as my witness that your house caught fire before it fell, or that the tree fell on it, or that a Volkswagen got blown in the air and fell. I'll take their as the perfect witness, because they shouldn't have to care. Right? I mean, they're just doing their job. I'll take that private in the Army Reserve, the Hawaii Reserve, standing there saying, I watched it. Right? It doesn't have to be you. So one of the things that we get is the authority to enter your property. So when we get hired, we get authority to enter, and we start documenting it. Mine says authority granted us is we step into your shoes, we're going to go look at this, see what happens. If I take a picture of a lava field, I'm going to say, okay, here's the GPS coordinates. We find the GPS coordinates. They will then help us locate what that was, and we can back it up onto Google. There's all kinds of ways than you going out there and breathing noxious gas and those. So the direct answer is, does this hurt my case? I don't know. What's your case? I got to find out, right?
Sandy wants to add to that.
The only thing I wanted to add is that in general, the insurance company has the burden to prove the exclusion applies. So that's a really important, once you've got a loss, so you've already proven you've got an accidental direct physical loss, they have to prove that the exclusion was the reason you lost your house. So their kind of ambiguities are construed in your favor. So that's what we're thinking along those lines.
Okay, so can you want to also say who your question is directed to?
Is there an advantage to using an insurance adjuster from the get-go before you even file the claim, or do you wait until there's a problem? And how much does it cost you to use that service?
10 to 15%. It's hard to get. I'm anywhere from 10 to 15%. I'm anywhere from 10. Good. Anywhere from 10 to 15% of the total loss on contingency, or we'll go hourly. Now understand that the hourly is $250. Well, let me finish that, right? So, we're already through all that. I was mid-sentence. Oh, yeah, and here's why. A lot of the claims are damaged by what people communicate improperly. And I'll give you that same example. I just use general examples, but I've had people go, I've told them it was mold. I told them it was mold. I go, why would you do that? Well, everybody says mold's bad. I said, yeah, you got a sub-loan of $10,000. You have $1 million house policy, but you told them it was mold. I'm telling them it's water damage. You swore it was mold. Yeah, so I would never have that argument trying to cover your $1 million house if you had not said that it was something you didn't know about. Mold cannot occur without moisture. Where'd the water come from, right? Was it a fortuitous event? You have a lava flow, that's a fortuitous event, right? So certain things matter. What you say right now, just be careful what you say. Watch out for the cleanup guys. Watch out for the stormtroopers, right? Sir, yes. Thank you for your patience. I know you've had that mic for 14 hours, right?
What all of us are concerned about and want to know more about is the letter that the mayor told us about that will prove that the houses all were burned, not covered by lava. Yeah. Can we know about that?
Well, you mean know about the letter, or what's? I've got two of those letters.
Well, we need to know whether it's going to help us. Is it going to be valid?
I like government officials saying that this is what happened.
Okay, I'm going to let Susie speak because she's gotten that letter. What does it say?
It says volcanic eruptions, and then later that your house went by fire. So I see a potential challenge there. I have a question also. You referred earlier to sort of the power in numbers, and obviously there's a lot of us here that have Lloyd's, some having lava exclusion and others don't. Is there some way, and how do we mobilize, because I think there's more power in those of us coming together, and I don't know if that's through you or us are likely to probably need an attorney. So I'm a little concerned to leave all our sign-ins only with you, no disrespect intended, but how do we mobilize as a community?
Jill will also have that list. That list is between UP, United Policyholders, and Hawaii Public Adjusters. We're combining the list because there's several lists that were signed. So we're just going to make sure we got everybody on one, and we're putting a matrix of who is what and where, so that it's organized. I'm going to give you some shoebox, but that will go to Jill, UP, and myself. So Hawaii Public Adjusters, sorry. Okay. You see, so eruption of events, we don't know what that, is that in the policy? I don't know. Honestly, and in your policy says this, and it says that you're getting to an analysis of the policy coverage from a government official writing what the cause of loss is. Right? That's what you want to know. But I can't tell you that till we're... Oh. Is that state? Okay. I've got county. Well, what would it matter? I mean, without the other half of the policy, how are we going to know what the implications are on that particular language? That's the hard part. But you do the drill down, like I kind of showed you, and see if you get to that. I mean, or hire us. I would need an NDA. I can talk to you about more specifics if Coral or them have got an NDA signed. I at least can have the better conversation.
I just had a suggestion on the community, getting the Lloyd's people together. What we've done in California with the wildfires is that people have formed Google groups. You guys know what Google community groups are? And so what they've done in California is like all state people, all the AAA people, they get on these groups, and it's sort of like a group email. And so what can happen is if somebody gets some sort of information, you can do a Lloyd's group. There's some listserv things where you can do email sharing, but also on Google. And so what happens is people write in and they say, okay, well, I have this adjuster and I'm having this issue, and people can sort of share their best practices. They can share the information that they're getting. Maybe you could subdivide into lava and non-lava endorsement things, but we found that works really well, because then you don't have to repeat the information. And only the people who are involved with that policy would be in that group. And it's worked really well with our California disasters. So I would suggest that. Well, you need like a team captain. And so what we've done in California is we've had one person from each insurance company. You have to have a little time, because you have to form the Google group, you have to set it up, you have to consolidate the email addresses and so forth. But it is definitely a very worthwhile thing.
And those lists when we sign would have that information, yes? Well, that's going to be up to your group. I mean, you got to understand this.
Well, okay. Oh, I see what you guys are talking. So you guys.
That's the list.
So you guys want access to the sign-in list that you had today. But that's a little tricky, because what if there's a problem with that? Every single person on the list would have to agree to have their information released. So that's a tough thing. What I think we could do, okay, is we could make a separate list, which we could put over here, and if you guys want to be on a Lloyd's list, you could, and by signing that, you agree that all the people in the Lloyd's list would be obtaining your information. We don't want to give out, like United Policyholders, when you give us your email address, it goes only to us. It goes nowhere else. So we don't share things We just use it for our own purposes. But I think it's a really good idea. We've seen it really work really well. It's a lot of best practices. The other thing that happens is if you see a pattern of behavior, you can catch it in the list. You can see if somebody's doing something, you can kind of get that it's happening to more than one person, and sometimes you can get together and either, contact a representative, the Department of Insurance or something, and say, we see this pattern happening. So I think it's a fantastic idea.
One other thing, some of us have, some of us have to abide by the insurance rules on personal privacies. I want to give it to you. Make no mistake. But there may be a step or two we got to do to make it that comes true. I got some people that are going to say, "What'd you put me on that for?" You got to see what the issue is. A little bit bigger than that. So we narrow that thing down, share it, right? Warning. You get somebody in the room like that lady, and now you're poison. Somebody's poisoning your group. Yeah, you got to have it.
So if there's inappropriate comments, people need to be, taken out of the group if there's inappropriate.
I want to add just one last thing to that. I'm sorry, but I think also if you have been denied and you have your denial letter in hand, that I would recommend you call the insurance division and the Department of Insurance. It's under the Hawaii Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. This is Gordon Ito. Robert was talking about him earlier, and report that denial. Okay, because then the insurance commissioner might also be able to help with the questions regarding mobilization, the group, having that information as far as who was denied and why, because they're going to also collect that information for whatever purposes they are going to do that, because they're a regulatory body, right? So they regulate the insurance companies. So they're going to be looking closely at these issues, who was denied and why and by whom, okay? Sorry. So this is the insurance department of the Hawaii Insurance Department under the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We know it here as the DCCA, and you can look that up online, the DCCA, okay? And that's Gordon Ito. He's our insurance commissioner.
I have two questions. The first question is, so my home was lost in vacation land, so total loss. I'm insured by Lloyd's. I was told by the adjuster that Hawaii is not a stated value policy state, meaning that even though I paid for, $200,000 in coverage, that I would not be able to get that despite it being a total loss. So I wondered if someone could comment on that.
Yeah, it's sort of, you have to still prove the value of what you lost. So you have to show them, it could very well be that you get your $200,000, but you have to show them what you lost and how much that cost. So when he was talking earlier about getting an estimator, construction contractor, something everyone here, let's take the coverage aside, everyone here needs to get an estimate to replace their house exactly how it was the day of the loss. So that's what they owe you. Up to the policy limit is to repair or replace with like, kind, and quality of what you lost up to the policy limit. So when they say stated value, there's certain policies, they're very rare, but there's certain policies that it's a stated value policy. If it's the stated value policy, you have $200,000, you lose it, you get the $200,000. That almost never happens in home insurance, so you guys have the burden to get a estimate submitted to the company in order to get your limits.
And my second question is, with the loss of use, we're not going to be able to go back. Who knows when.
So just to clarify the loss of use a little bit, because I think it was a little bit confusing, there's two different coverages. There's additional living expense loss of use, which pays, if you have a covered loss, it pays for your increased cost to live and maintain your standard of living for the period of time to repair or replace your property up to a time limit or money limit, which is something totally different than the 2 weeks. So I think there was a little bit of confusion there. So your additional living expenses are different than the temporary expenses. The temporary expenses are those 2 weeks if you're asked to leave because by the civil authority.
But the loss of use is, my policy is just a 1-year policy, but this is going to take, I mean, I don't think we're going to go back. So, I mean, how do you get that loss of use and what's the fair amount?
Read your policy better. Don't listen to the insurance agent. If you think that you not look, you can rebuild right there, or you can rebuild over there. You don't have to rebuild on your land. I got somebody wants to rebuild their house that they have here in a vacation place in New York. I said, how are they going to make that happen? I'll get you to value that, what that is. And then the only difference is you don't get that land. Well, I'm sorry, they can have that land. Then you get this other land. They can build there. With your insurance money, you get that. What about contractors? Remember, they're going to say $400,000.
It was more an issue of timing because
I understand.
Yeah, so what they have to do is take basically the cost. So if you have your additional living expenses, relocation to live somewhere else. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
So your additional living expenses pays your increased costs to live somewhere else. So you all have to still pay your mortgage, which is a horrible thing to say, but it's true. You still have to pay your mortgage, and now you have to pay rent to live in another place. So that rent is your increased cost to maintain your standard of living. Just 1 second. So policies have different things in them. So if you are now paying, $100 a month to rent a place, then that's what they owe you. They owe you, and remember he gave the example of the 5-bedroom home. If you live in a 5-bedroom home, they owe you a 5-bedroom home. The only caveat I'm going to tell you about that is if you have a limit to your additional living expenses, then you're better off taking a smaller home to make it stretch longer. You see what I'm saying? If you have say $120,000 limit, you want to make it last as long. Now, most policies, they'll specify in there. California's just passed a law saying they get 2 years no matter what. I don't know what Hawaii says, but the policies usually say 1 year, 24 months. So if you look in your policy, it'll tell you how much time you have. And that's totally different. It has nothing to do with the 2 weeks and letting you onto your property or anything like that. That's just your sort of emergency thing.
This is on all the Lloyd's of London policies probably. It says this insurance contract is issued by an insurer which is not licensed by the state of Hawaii and is not subject to its regulation or examination. If the insurer is found insolvent, claims under this contract are not covered by any guarantee fund by the state of Hawaii. So we have companies that have 30 to 40 claims. If they go insolvent, or how does this paragraph
Lloyd's
relate
of
to
London
us?
is not going to go insolvent. Lloyd's of London is enormous, so you can forget about that. They're huge. This is a blip on the tiny little bit of their radar screen. So Lloyd's isn't going to go. They're what's called a non-admitted insured. So they're allowed to sell insurance here. They're just not one of the licensed insurers. It's just kind of a side thing. So if you had bought from a kind of a questionable insurance company, then you'd be in a lot worse shape. It also doesn't mean that the Department of Insurance doesn't have any authority over them. It just means that they're kind of a little bit outside of the thing. I wouldn't worry about that unless it becomes a problem. That's something I think it's kind of a red herring.
And they're still subject to Hawaii law. They're still subject to Hawaii law.
So.
Aloha. I'd like to address this to any of the attorneys. I noticed that a lot of Hawaii law is based on case histories of things that have been in court, and we've had lava flows before. So what I'd like to know is concerning whether your house was destroyed by fire or lava, and someone just told me that my house that I mentioned, the lava came in, hit a corner of the house, and then it burnt because the roof is still there. It's not covered by lava, it burned. So what is the case law? What are the cases that would be, basing these things on as to whether it's lava or whether it's fire?
I'm not sure there's case law. This gets into evidentiary proof, okay? And if it's way down the road, but it would be experts who would come and say what happened, okay? And it would be, because I as an attorney can't say what it was. You as a lay person can say, but you're not saying it with authority. it would be some expert, and there's experts in the field, all the fields, right? Bill will tell you there's car reconstruction, I'm sure there's people. This isn't the first lava flow, right? So it would probably boil down to an evidentiary piece.
So it would be prudent for me to get in a helicopter and to go take a picture while my roof is still there before the lava then covers it, and then they, my evidence is gone.
There's no question that your house was standing. They renewed the policy, right? But there's no question that, right? And now the house, okay, I didn't hear it because somebody was asking me a question. So if the house is burned, how do you know it's burned? You already know, right?
Well, somebody told me that was up in a helicopter. I said, were they taking pictures? Can I get some pictures? She said, I don't know. She just said, your roof is still there, and the lava went in on the corner. So if Lloyd's of London doesn't cover lava, but the house burnt, was that lava that caused it to burn, therefore they don't have to pay? That's the kind of clarification we need.
And I don't want to harp on this. You haven't submitted your claim and you haven't gotten a denial and it hasn't stated why. So, but if you can get a picture, yeah, absolutely. The problem you have right now is you do not know.
I got plenty of money for helicopters, don't worry. We just lost all our...
But I'm just saying, you don't know. You don't know if your house has been lost or yet, right? So.
Nobody should be putting themselves in harm's way to get that picture. That's not required of you. That would be an absurd result to injure yourself to get that picture. And you don't need to spend a ton of money. You don't need to behave unreasonably to get